I'm Alex Howard.
And I'm Amanda Silver. And this is Dirty Laundry. So we recently saw Dr. Becky in real life.
IRL.
Oh my gosh. That was so amazing.
Like, I didn't think she could be better because I'm obsessed with her. And then she shows up like a boss, like the most cool as a cucumber, just whips out these nuggets of like bang on advice. Yeah. She did a whole Q&A and like, those are some tough questions. And she was just like, boom, boom, boom.
She is just a real powerhouse.
We're so lucky. I feel so lucky.
It was such a wonderful experience, like an intimate experience to be able to go and have her interact with the crowd and answer questions, like real questions. And,
first time in Canada.
Yes, her first time in Canada.
Very exciting.
Who hooked you up?
I mean, you did. See, my number one hookup for all things cool.
I told you. I don't even think you realized it was true. I was like, we're going to see Dr. Becky.
I thought it was a joke.
Dr. Becky's coming. And you're like, okay, she's not coming.
Yeah, cool.
I'm like, no, but we're going. Yeah. And you're like, I can't believe
it was everything I wanted and more.
It was just so
the only thing would have been better if like I could have got up and hugged her.
I wanted to give her a hug.
Like
so
wanted
Dr.
to just
Becky.
come and hang with us. But just again, it's just like this idea of a refreshing take that is so generous to parents.
Yes.
Like we beat ourselves up so much. We carry so much guilt, particularly in divorce. But again, just general parenting.
And social media doesn't help.
Social media is the worst.
I love
Don't get me started.
No, but I do love that there's been a bit of a shift where people are actually showing their reality versus, you know, like and it's become like a satire almost about like how stupid people were like
unattainable
maybe 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And we're all guilty of it. I'm guilty of it too, where it's like, look at this perfect photo shoot. Everything looks so beautiful and perfect. And it's like, but show me your real life.
Yeah.
Show me the real shitstorm behind it.
Exactly.
And that's what people relate to.
That's what we all connect on, is that we're going through.
We all have our challenges.
This like big, messy journey.
And our kids are not perfect, obedient, perfect. You know, like it's... No. And they shouldn't be because they're kids.
Because they're just little babies.
They're just little babies.
Just learning. And so really the takeaway was for me as, you know.
Yeah. What did you take away from your Dr. Becky?
Boundaries.
Boundaries.
It always comes back to boundaries.
You're good with your boundaries.
I am not. I am a hardcore work in progress. I will say that.
Parenting boundaries.
You know
You're very strong with your parenting. I have something I really admire about watching you parent.
Aww.
It's true. It's that you're very good with strong with your parenting boundaries. You have hard lines and like it doesn't get crossed.
Yeah.
You know, and it's something that we all have to work on.
Yeah.
And it's not easy, especially as you're raising kids and they're getting really preteens and like
it is getting harder, I will say.
Of course it's going to be harder.
I'm in this like weird phase of like I kind of still want them to like me.
We always want our kids to
I have to get over that though, because
we always do.
I know. Thank you.
Like
I feel validated.
Who doesn't want you? Always you can say you don't. Well, they don't have to like me. I could just get to be their parent, but like
I know I really
that's
want
not
them
really
to.
true.
I know.
You want them to come and tell you about things and confide in you and want your advice and.
But I will say, when I ease up on boundaries, we actually have a worse relationship. When I let them get away with things, they're a bit more tooty than I would maybe like. And yet, though in that instance of me holding a firm boundary, I get, of course, a lot of pushback. Yeah. And then we're over it.
Yeah.
And then it's like, all right, back to regular business as usual. Yeah. So I think, you know, the PSA again is just, you're on the right track. If the kids don't like your boundary, it's a good one.
So I really took away was like, okay, if they're upset with something that you've put in place, you're doing the right thing.
Hit the nail on the head,
like not across the board, okay? Not across the board.
Take it with a grain of salt, but
you say, okay, iPad's done now. Mm-hmm. They're going to be upset, right? There's going to be a reaction.
Yeah.
But that's because you set a boundary that they don't like, but that they need it.
Yes. And the firmer you can be, the more actually stable your home environment is.
But on the other side of parenting are the parents that are too firm.
Sure.
And
too strict, too rigid.
Too strict and too rigid and are controlling the kids. Yes. And there's a whole part of that's not healthy.
Yes, to be clear, boundaries are not about control.
No, and I think some parents mix that up where it's my house and my rules.
Yes.
And that is not what we're talking about here. We're talking
need to
about
respect the kids.
Yes, they need to go to bed at a certain time and they need to go to the doctors and things that they need to do their homework.
Eat their vegetables. Yeah.
Yes, but they don't need to be your little soldier.
Yeah.
Because that's where it gets unhealthy.
Yes, and that's not love. That's
control,
obedience.
It's control, and so you have those controlling parents, and it comes through very much so. I think after divorce,
yes,
where you can see the two different styles, right?
Yeah,
you can see a parent that's extremely controlling and what that does to the kids.
Yeah.
So boundaries are great.
Yeah.
But controlling your kids,
right,
where they're fearful and they can't be expressive and they shut down, that's not great.
Yeah, you're doing everyone a
and
disservice.
So we're today going to be talking about someone who tells us how to co-parent with people like that, right? With coercive controllers who are so rigid and so difficult and counter-parent and make your life miserable.
Yeah.
And how do you co-parent with them?
Exactly.
And how do your kids handle it?
Yeah.
What do you tell your kids? How do you handle that?
Yeah, we're learning so much more about what that counter-parent looks like and what parallel parenting looks like versus co-parenting. Because at the end of the day, it's just simply not possible when you have someone with a complete different agenda than what's in the best interest of your child.
Co-parenting is not for everybody.
No.
It might not be possible for you. You might want to and have the best intentions, but you might not be able to.
Yeah, yeah. And so today on the DL, who have we got?
We have Chantal. And she is going to be talking all about coercive control and about safe parents and unsafe parents and how to handle it all. And she takes a different spin on it, which I really like, because a lot of our conversations are what do you do when something happens?
How do you react?
How to react. Hers is about maintaining control in your own home and the things that you can do in your own home to give your kids security.
Yeah.
So, and safety. So I'm really excited to have a conversation with her. So welcome, Chantal. You've left, and now what? What does that
It's
look like?
It's like the understanding before you even leave. Leaving feels like the hardest part because you've been silenced, and this is the ultimate boundary, right? Is leaving, and it's very scary, and it takes on average 7 times before you can actually successfully leave. But leaving is like the start of the hell. Yeah, really.
Yes,
and I think people need to know that they need to be making informed decisions. Not to say that they shouldn't leave, but they need to prepare themselves that this is not going to be the end of the hell. It's going to be the beginning of a new type of hell.
Yep.
Right. Because the leaving actually instigates or exacerbates the awful behavior and treatment that you're trying to leave. I almost see it as 3 parts, right? Part 1, you are maybe getting up the courage, getting the logistics in place to make that big final, step to leave. Then there's the process itself of actually getting your separation agreement. And then there's the whole other chapter that I think most folks don't know about or kind of unaware of, that, it could actually get worse.
Yeah.
After. Especially when there's children involved, right? Children are the ultimate tether. They are what tether every survivor to their abuser indefinitely, right? We say 18 years, but really it can go past 18 years as well.
Yeah. One of the posts I saw on your Instagram was, and I'm going to butcher this, so feel free to correct me, but it's something to the effect of, shout out to those parents who are just, guiltily waiting for their kids to turn 18 so that they can sever that tie with their abuser or their, very high conflict other parent. So what do you then, Chantal, sort of help people to prepare with? I imagine there's like a logistical side where, maybe you're getting financial documents or you're seeing a therapist or you're something to get. And then there's the emotional component where you have to talk to your kids about it. You have to, take care of yourself and prepare yourself for that exit. What kind of advice, how do you support people through that?
So if a person is educated enough about their situation, so many people leave without even realizing they're in an abusive situation, right? That's the reality for so many. There's the delayed realization. And that becomes so much harder because you haven't prepared. You've just left. You've just left by hook or crook. And then you realize, oh shit, I should have done X, Y, and Z. But there are people who become educated while in their relationship. And if they reach out to experts such as myself or other people online, you have to have an escape strategy. You're not leaving, you're actually escaping. And so you need to be prepared, right? Emotionally prepared for what's going to come, which is really hard because by the time you're ready to leave, you've garnered the gumption to be able to take that really scary step. You're emotionally, physically, psychologically exhausted. But you really have to prepare for the ultra marathon. It's not going to be a sprint. Everything about this is going to be an ultra marathon. Your separation, your divorce, and your co-parenting journey. It's all going to be an ultra marathon. So you have to prepare accordingly. So you have to prepare all of your financial documents. So many people have no idea what they're up against financially. This is the easiest way to control a person, which is why so many people end up going back, because they leave and then quickly realize that they have no access to money. They've been cut off for whatever reason, even if they earn their own income. So it's not just the stay-at-homes. They abuse you financially. So if you have tied joint stuff, they'll cut stuff off, or they'll rack up huge debt. So you need to prepare financially. You need to talk to experts before you leave. Again, a lot of people don't, because they don't even know what they're up against. But if you do, prepare. Talk to a divorce coach, then talk to a lawyer, right? Who you hire can really make or break your divorce process, right? So hiring a divorce coach sounds like an extra expense, but their job is to actually save you time and money by being methodical and being strategic. So that you actually hire the right lawyer, right? You're not just going to be up against a healthy co-parent whose ego might be slightly bruised, but they're in it for their children. And even if you happen to cheat, they're like, you know what? It's okay, because at the end of the day, I love my children more than I dislike my ex. Mm-hmm. When you're dealing with a narcissist, they hate you more than they love their children. And so as soon as you leave, it activates their abandonment wound. And so it becomes hell on earth. It's scorched earth. They will do everything possible to break you. And that is the reality. It's not to scare people, but you have to go into this with your eyes wide open.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And I think I really appreciate you distinguishing between it's not leaving, it's escaping, because language is so important. Language is so telling. And it's not, as you pointed out, you're not just leaving because there was intimate betrayal, or because, somebody had a gambling problem.
Because you're unhappy.
Yeah, exactly. Like something just, we've drifted apart. No.
Or the cell phone.
Yeah, or the cell phone. But those are the type of people that can actually plan in advance.
Yeah.
The ones who are leaving for those reasons. Yeah. It's the ones who don't have a choice because their safety is at risk.
Or their children's safety.
Or their children's safety. They can't prepare. So they're forced into this. They leave, they escape. And then they think, okay, I can breathe a sigh of relief. I'm safe. I'm out. It's all going to be better from here on out. But unfortunately, it's not. It's just the beginning.
Because society really lets survivors and victims down, right? We always say leave, especially if you have children. You can't stay in an abusive relationship. And remember, typically people understand abuse as being loud and physical, but abuse is so much more than that. That's one type of abuse, but it's the most obvious kind. And from the people that I've worked with and talked to, it's the least damaging kind. The most damaging kind, according to people that I work with, is the psychological, mental, and emotional abuse, right? Because it's insidious. And you don't even know that it's happening, and it's very covert, right? Even the overts are covert, because it's a micro-criticism there, it's a micro-criticism here, it's a judgment there, it's an eye roll, it's a look that puts you in your place and makes you go, oh my gosh, I've done something wrong. Now what's going to happen? And society says you can't stay with this, right? You have to leave, especially if you have children. You can't raise your children in this type of environment. So victims leave, and there's nobody there to help them. Right? This is not, and if you have a moneyed narcissist, God help you, because you don't have the same sort of resources. It's not a fair playing field, and they would rather go bankrupt than give you your fair share.
Yeah, they'll weaponize anything just to get back at you. Yeah, it is that whole abandonment. That's so interesting. Is that, would you say, part and parcel with an abuser's sort of ethos, is some kind of like deep attachment wounds? And I mean, not to get too clinical about it, but
absolutely. Abandonment and exposure are their greatest fears. And it all comes down to the pathology, right? They've had to create this maladaptive coping mechanism to keep people attached to them.
Right.
Even though like we always erroneously believe that abusers are very confident, right? Like they are grandiose and they walk into a room and people are drawn to them. That there is that type of abuser, but there's also the type of abuser that's very like gentle and like vulnerable and shy and possibly self-critical. But at the core of both of these types and all of these types is that they have a very fragile ego. And the only way that they feel that people will stay with them is if they manipulate them. They feel so badly about themselves that they don't think that people will stay if they actually know who they are. Everything is curated, right? Everything they do is about image, which is why exposure is their second greatest fear, right? Of being exposed.
And leaving is the double-edged sword. It does both. right?
Yep.
They're
Abandonment
abandoned
and exposure.
and they're exposed because now everyone knows he left or she left and they're not taking it anymore. Obviously, things are not what they seem.
Yeah, they're not this perfect family with
No.
like 2.5 kids and a white picket fence and little Fido the dog. There is an issue, obviously, and the underlying issue caused this person to leave. So why did they leave?
And then they get into this mode of anger and vindictiveness and the abuse just escalates afterwards.
Yeah, and it's like payback at all costs. And
revenge. It's like a revenge period.
And so, and I also have to, there's like a caveat to this, right? It's even if the victim hasn't left, say they stay in the marriage because they're just too scared to leave. There's oftentimes the discard, right? Where the narcissist, most narcissists cheat. In some way, shape, or form during the relationship. They cannot only have one source of supply. They need to feel relevant and powerful and adored by other people. So it's very common for them to cheat on their spouses and ultimately discard their spouse, right? So look, I've found somebody younger than you, richer than you, more beautiful than you, more handsome than you, who meets all of my needs. You're defective. I've left you. And now I have this new version. And so even if they have done this, right, which a lot of my clients, they've been the discarded person, you moving on, you healing, you finding peace and happiness and creating boundaries still smacks of abandonment to the narcissist. And so even if they leave you and they discard you in the worst possible way, you having the audacity to create boundaries and move on really activates and triggers their abandonment wound. And then so it's still vengeance. It's still revenge at all costs.
And that makes co-parenting with them nearly impossible because co-parenting is all about creating those boundaries and moving on and healing, right? And how can you do that with someone who is completely vindictive?
Yeah. Well, you can't, right? So I always say co-parenting with like quotes, but you actually can't co-parent,
you can't, right?
You would gladly, even if they cheated on you, if you're a loving parent, you would gladly co-parent for your children's sake, right? You would do everything. You would suck up your ego and your wounds because at the end of the day, your children need you to show up for them. Yeah. They will always counter-parent. And so you have to revert to parallel parenting quietly. Don't tell them you're doing it. Just do it.
Interesting.
If like you need to lock everything down.
Right.
They are not your friend. They're not your co-parent. Every piece of information you ever give them, good or bad or indifferent, they will use against you. They will weaponize it against you, right? So you just do things. You keep them, out of your personal business. You lock down your social media. You don't give them emotions. You don't tell them what you're going to do. If you've moved on and you found happiness, try to keep that person a secret from them as possible, because anything they know about you, they will use against you. Right. And typically, they'll use it through your children, right? They always like to weaponize the children.
Always. It's so heartbreaking. So during the actual separation period, when you're going through whatever process you're going through to finalize your divorce, how are you then supporting clients, right? Because again, you don't want to give too much, but this is the time when you're sharing kind of everything. You have to do disclosure and you have to, kind of get it all out there. How does one give a little in that process, like throughout that system?
So here's the difference between normal people and coercive controllers is we play by the rules, right? So we will give full financial disclosure. We'll put it all on the table. Well, those little pesky narcissists, they do not play by the rules. They don't believe that rules apply to them. And schmucks only play by the rules, right? So it's very typical for them to move money offshore, to put all of their assets in their mom's name or their new girlfriend or boyfriend's name, to suddenly be unemployed and not be able to make money, to, really stall financial disclosure and make up numbers, right? And so it's never going to be a fair playing game or field, right? And this is what people have to realize. You're never going to get what you deserve. That is the truth, right? You're always going to have to walk away with less than you actually legally deserve, morally and ethically deserve as well. But that is the price we all have to pay when we are up against this type of person. You really have to pick your battles. Is it worth it, right? So many people would gladly walk away with zero, right? No money if they could protect their kids. That's really the difference between abusers and victims. We would protect our children at all costs, even if it meant that at 50 we were starting from scratch. An abuser will always go after the money.
Right. And the problem is it's not just the money, because even if they get the money, they then still want the kids.
Yep. So it always comes back to the kids.
It always comes back. They want it all. They don't just want to get part. It's not like, okay, you can take the kids and I'll take the money and everyone's happy. It doesn't work that way. They want to take everything.
Yeah. And so people think that they go, okay, well, I've given him or her more.
Right.
Financially in the divorce. Right. I haven't asked for support. So we're going to be okay. Right. Because I've given them the lion's bulk of the money. We're going to be fine. Yeah. Well, they're fine for like 5 minutes. And then their itch, they have to scratch this itch again. And then guess what? They always, every single narcissistic abuser that I've ever encountered always goes after the children. But you really have to decide in your legal battle, what is your non-negotiable? Right? That's what you fight for. You can't fight every battle. You're not going to win every battle. I mean, you could legally, even if you have the money, you could financially as well. But how much of your life do you want to spend fighting this out?
Yeah, right? Dragging it out.
How much money do you want to spend?
My understanding is they want to drag it out.
Oh, yeah.
And so do you want to go along for the ride? And how much are you willing to sacrifice to just make it end?
Right.
Yeah.
But then the tricky thing is, then enters like chapter 3, which is what parallel parenting, whatever you want to call it, you're still tethered to this person. So even if divorce proceedings end and you have an agreement and you've signed on that dotted line, it's like, okay, good. Here comes phase 3 where you're still forever dealing with this, just in new creative ways.
They'll find a way. They will find a way to counter. You want this camp? I want this camp. You want up? I say down, right? You want a haircut? I don't want a haircut. It's literally the opposite. You want hockey? I want soccer. It's every single decision that parents need to make gets countered. And so how do you handle it?
So first of all, you have to be proactive. I tell all of my clients, right? You have to go into this with your eyes wide open. You have to know, I'm not a fear monger. I'm a reality broker. So this is your reality, right?
I like that.
And your reality is going to be like this. It is not gloom and doom, though. You can live a beautiful life. Honestly, you truthfully can. You can live a full, happy, peaceful life alongside the shitstorm that they tried to create alongside you, right? They were always trying to infiltrate the boundaries that you set up. So first of all comes down to boundaries, right? You have to create boundaries, not all at once. And you have to really be sure that these boundaries are things that you're always going to be able to enforce 100% of the time. Not 99% of the time, but 100%, right? If you give in even just 1%, well, it's actually not that bad. And actually serve the children better. Guess what? You've just opened Pandora's box because now they're like, ooh, I just have to ask 99 times. And on the 100th time, they're going to give me what I want, right? And they don't care that it's in the child's best interest. They just care that you said yes when previously you said no. So boundaries, right? You have to be able to anticipate what they're going to do so you can mitigate it. Again, it's not living in fear. It's just being proactive, right? And the most important piece of advice I could give every protective parent, every victim who has escaped and has children is really secure your connection with your children. Because they are going to try to erode that. And they've probably already started while you were still married. You just weren't realizing that this was happening. But they cannot stand that you have a tight bond with your children, that your children truly feel safer with you because you're unconditionally loving and you're a safe person, whereas they are conditionally loving. They don't even love their children, but we'll just use love in quotes for the sake of this. So really work on your connection with your children. Really foster in your home equality and validation and respect and talking about emotions and feelings. Make them critical thinkers, right? Critical thinkers are able to cut through bullshit faster than anybody else, right? And it's more imperative now than ever in our political climate across the world to be a critical thinker, but not so more important than when you have a parent who is like this, who intentionally creates chaos and confusion to confuse their own children.
Yeah, and this to me seems kind of like really the cyclical nature too of this kind of personality whereby, as you explained early on, okay, I have like this, tenuous attachment style or abandonment issues. And now this almost inability to love I think anything, but again, this is not my area of expertise, but
you are absolutely correct though when you say they are unable to love anybody, not even themselves, not their parents, not their children, not their new Porsche, not their fancy vacation. They love nothing.
And so it's this constant need to fill that void with whether it's material things or, the battle with your ex. Mm-hmm. How do you, just on the I guess path of protecting the children, kind of make them feel like it's not their fault so that they're not then repeating the same behavioral pattern? So I guess, yes, obviously the protective parent is the one that's there loving them, showing them stability, showing them proper boundaries and, a loving, safe, stable home. But they're still getting all of that shit from their other parent.
How do they not learn it?
How do they not learn and repeat it?
Well, that's where it gets really hard because in every narcissistic family system, there's always the golden child, right? And the golden child is the favorite child. And it's the flavor of the week because this position can be dethroned at any time, right? So typically the golden child is the one that looks the best to the outside world, right? There's the child who's the straight A student or the star athlete or, the great artist. But they're also the child that aligns the most closely with this parent, right? That really strokes their ego and makes them feel loved and nurtured and appreciated for the martyr that they are as a parent, right? And so typically, but not always, it's the golden child who will more than likely follow down this path because they're being groomed, right? They're learning to manipulate. They're being modeled how to do what they're doing. It doesn't mean that every golden child is going to be this, right? That is why protective parents, why their roles are so important because what you impart upon your children during your time can really make or break your children. Mm-hmm. And you really have to think of it as in this family system, it's like a cult, right? It's brainwashing. It's all day, every day. They repeat the same narrative. Your other parent sucks. You're safer with me. I'm a better parent. The other parent doesn't love you. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that it's literally on repeat. I've had clients whose children come to them and say, I don't want to talk about anything because that's all we ever talk about at dad's house or mom's house. And literally that's all the children hear. It's constant criticism. It's constant judgment. It's constant brainwashing. So you can do the same thing in your house though, but the opposite, right?
Okay.
So your messaging just can't be a one-off. I love you unconditionally, no matter what, right? I don't always like your behavior, but I always love you. So what I tell my kids, for instance, is I love you unconditionally. Yeah. Doesn't mean I always like your behavior. For instance, you could kill somebody. I would still love you, but I wouldn't like what you did. Yeah. But I still love you. Yeah. It's your behavior that I don't like, right? And that's a really important distinction for children to understand that we love them no matter what they do, no matter how they treat us, we'll always love them. We'll always show up for them. It doesn't mean I'm going to enable my child to keep murdering people or, sweep it under the rug. They're going to have to face consequences, but I'll be there to support them through this, right? Yeah. Hopefully my child doesn't murder anybody. That's really great.
That would be spectacular. Yeah. No, I had that
fingers crossed
for every parent across the planet. No, I actually had that exact conversation with my kids. My husband and I had a fight and, they were like, oh my goodness, obviously it was very upsetting and, whatever. But I said to them, I go, my love for your dad is actually conditional, but my love for you is not. If dad murdered somebody, I don't know that I'd stand by him. If I'm being totally honest. But to your point, if my kids did, I'd be, front row at that fucking gallery every, day of their jury trial. Right. Yeah. Giving them the best lawyer I could, find.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It is a huge distinction. So the lesson here, just keep on with the love.
With the unconditional.
And the messaging has to be constant, right? It's whenever they come to your house is a safe place. They're all treated equally. You all work as a team, right? Because in the other house, it's divide and conquer. So they pit children against each other because when you divide people, they're not going to align together. They're going to work against each other, right?
They're weaker.
Plus, children are always in competition against each other to get, the breadcrumbs of love and attention from this parent. Yeah. So in your house, it's where everyone's equal and you respect. And that's sometimes hard because a child might say, well, I don't want to talk about it. And you're like, absolutely, you don't have to talk about things in my house. That's, because you're teaching them to respect them. It doesn't always mean that you agree with them, right? So I can respect this is how you feel right now. You're really angry at me, even though they don't really have a reason to be angry at you, but they've become home weaponized. Yeah. You have every right to feel this way. What can I do to help you through this, right? So in your house, it's teaching them everything that they're not getting in the other house. So you don't like disparage the other parent, but you show them that there's a different way to live life.
Right.
It's the modeling. It's the modeling versus the telling. In the other house, they're being told a narrative and being shown a different one. But in your home, you need to really just model.
How does all of that factor into with families of origin? You know, part of all of my separation agreements for the most part is this idea of the extended family and enduring relationships ongoing with grandparents, aunts, uncles, etc. If this is the family that your counterparent has come out of, I feel like I'm not super jazzed to leave them with the grandparents that raised this, abusive person.
And you might not have a choice.
But if you don't have a choice, so is it kind of the same methodology that we just went through of, constantly role modeling, love, unconditional, acceptance, etc.? Or do you stop them at all from going over there?
So here's the thing is you have to remember that you cannot control your ex, right? You cannot control what they do or do not do during their parenting time. And that's maddening, right? Because our job as protective parents by very definition is to protect our children from granny who's like the most critical bitch ever, right? Which is why her son Johnny is the way that he is, right? Yeah. Because she demeaned him at every turn. So that's maddening because we want to protect our children from unhealthy people. The more you protest, the more they're going to do, right? So if you tell them, hey, I don't want our children to be around your parents because they're horrible, guess who's going to be watching your children every time they go to their dad's house or their mom's house, right? It's mom and pop, right? So you really just have to radically accept that you can't control what happens there. The caveat for that is when there's physical abuse and or sexual abuse, right? Then you actually talk to your lawyer and you take that further. Yeah. But anything else, good luck trying to prove that in court, right? And the more you fight it, the more energy you're wasting and expending on this person, and the more likely they are to become entrenched in doing exactly what you're telling them that you don't want them to do, right? So you focus on what you can control. You can't control who your children see, their new girlfriend or their new boyfriend of the week. That's outside of your control. But you focus on what you can control. So you have the antithesis at your house. You have healthy people who come over, right? Family, friends, family, and show your children what healthy relationships look like. And that, again, is modeling. Okay, so when I go to dad's house or mom's house, my grandparents don't make me feel loved. Like I feel like I'm walking on eggshells. But when I go to mom's house, those people really make me feel loved. And you can talk about this, right? It's really, communication is your greatest asset with your children, being able to openly communicate stuff, and you start them as young as possible. So you not only model, but you narrate. Hey, we just had, grandma over and my whole body feels really relaxed and I feel really light and I feel happy. How do you feel, right? It's teaching your children to become attuned to their bodies because their bodies don't lie. People lie, but our bodies always tell us, you get anxious when you're around certain people. It's probably that person's not very good for you. But if you feel good and you feel relaxed and peaceful and happy, it's probably because that person's a good person for you.
That is really smart. I love anything that gets kids looking inwards instead of outwards, trusting their own instincts, trusting their own desires, their own intuition. I think that's so, as we talk about how broken this society is. That is one thing that we are not teaching very well. It's a lot of gaslighting. And I have been very guilty of it too. The kids are like, can I have a snack before bed? No, you're not hungry. You're just tired. Go to bed. You don't need it. So
because I want 2 hours before I have to go to bed too.
Because I'm already in bed and I'm getting up to make you a snack. What about that age-old question? Just as we're talking about children of, you got to leave and you don't have to see them anymore, but I do. Because I think, we ask, pretty much any expert that comes on, because I also need to know this to support my clients. Because how you don't want to lie to your kids, but you don't want to really disparage and, tell them too much. Of course, this is still their other parent. And eventually they're going to figure out, let's be honest, on their own. They're intelligent enough. But that question to me is just the most gutting.
Well, and it's the reality for every protective parent, right? Yeah. Every person I've ever worked with was like, I feel so guilty. I escaped and I never have to see them again if I don't want to. But my child or my children have to go there 50% of the time. Half of their childhood is with this other parent, right? That's a guilt that we all carry. If your child asks you questions, never lie to them and don't gaslight them, right? But it has to be age appropriate and how mature. So just because your child is 13 doesn't mean that your 13-year-old is as mature as my 13-year-old, right?
Yeah.
So it has to be, you are your child's expert. You know your child better than anybody, any expert, right? You know your children better than anybody. So tailor the language to them. So if they literally say, well, you got to leave and you don't have to go back, why do I have to go back? Because most children, when they're in an abusive relationship, especially at the beginning, are pretty clear that they don't feel comfortable. Something's off, right? But the longer they have to stay with this parent, the more likely they are to go along to get along, right? So if they ask you the question, say, this is just the way that it is. When you are old enough, right? You are going to be able to advocate for yourself, right? And sometimes advocating for yourself can feel very scary. Feels like you're letting other people down or that people are going to be disappointed in you. And this is part of what I teach my clients, right? It's teaching our kids to be advocates for themselves. It most likely won't happen when they're feeling reliant on this parent for safety, but we want our children to be able to, at some point in their lives, say, you know what? No more. Because you don't want to be the 50-year-old who is still under your narcissistic parent's thumb. You want to be the 15, 20-year-old who says, you know what? I love you. You'll always be my mom or my dad, but I'm not going to hang out with you when you treat me like this.
I love this. Has been so positive.
Yes, this is positive.
It's giving me hope. I really, this is great advice, Chantal. Thank you. Final question? I'm going to let you go. I could chat for ages. I mean,
I'm super fun at parties. This is all I talk about. I can right?
Us too. It's funny. When I get to a party and I feel like, tell me about the latest divorces. I'm like, really? That's what you want to talk about? I'm like, okay.
I'm the opposite. I'm like, you'll never guess about these divorces. I want to talk about it all the time. People are so fascinating. But we're a real hoot at a gathering.
Me too, ladies.
Yeah. It's so fun. Chantal, where are you in Canada? We're so excited to finally talk to a Canadian. We've interviewed so many Americans. It's such a treat.
American.
I am from Vancouver, but I now live in Victoria.
Oh, very fun.
We're in Toronto.
So. Yeah. Oh, so you guys probably have for sure good weather by now. We just had a snowstorm last night.
Yeah, it's kind of sunny outside today.
Yeah, I'm going to be the cliche. I know, like the cliche
and
Canadian.
All of our flowers are blooming. We have our cherry blossoms are out. Our magnolia trees are out.
Now you're just,
I love it.
I'm not trying to rub it in, but it's pretty cool.
I went to go visit Victoria when I was looking at universities, and I remember all the bunnies on the campus, and I'm like, I don't think I can live here. This is it's so beautiful. But the bunnies were everywhere. That's my one and only time being in Victoria, but I got to go back because it is beautiful.
10 out of 10 recommend. Honestly, it's like heaven on earth.
10 out of 10. Well, you go and you enjoy. And thank you so much.
You've given us so much to think about. And
great conversation.
Really different perspective to take, because I think so much of this conversations have always been, what do you do when? How do you handle this when? Well, it's like, no, this is what you do before.
Yeah.
This is what you do on your own that has nothing to do with the other parent.
Yep.
Yeah. Love it. Love it.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
This episode was written and created by Alex Howard and Amanda Silver. Produced, edited, and engineered by RTF Productions. Make sure to rate and review our show if you loved it, and give us a follow on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you stream your podcast to stay up to date on all upcoming episodes. Thanks for listening, and go easy on us. We're not your ex.